Hi, my name is Erin, and the claim that I'm refuting is that as long as the Bible is being used in legal situations to take an oath, there is not a true separation between church and state. The legal situations that the advocate used in the speech was the president being sworn into office and sworn testimony before a court. And the secondary claims that she makes were, number one, the Bible is not an inclusive document when to use in situations regarding the whole American public. Number two, it feels as if the judges in court are acknowledging that our citizens need not be truthful to our government but only to God. And number three, seeing a president on national television swearing on a Bible insinuates that one must be religious to become president. So in response to the first claim, which was the Bible is not an inclusive document to use in situations regarding the whole American public, I made a counterclaim saying that swearing into office represents the individual's integrity rather than the whole American public. The president swears for himself when being sworn into office. He does not represent the American public. The American public is not being sworn into office. It is the president who's being sworn into office. Therefore, he represents himself. The Bible, by extension, the Bible shows how the president wants to express this promise. It would be like swearing on something really important to you to show your sincerity. According to Article 6 of the U.S. Constitution, it says that no religious test shall ever be required as a qualification to any office or public trust under the U.S. So the Bible is not required to be used. It's just mainly tradition, after George Washington did it first. Also, John Adams and Franklin Pierce were both presidents who did not swear on the Bible. They used the Book of Law, which included the U.S. Constitution. Theodore Roosevelt, he didn't swear on anything, he just took the oath. And then Lyndon Johnson used a Roman Catholic missal in place of the Bible, and that just happened to be lying around. So this shows that the Bible is just a means in which the president is being sworn into. And it represents the integrity of the president, not the wishes of the public. And the advocate here confuses the means in which the oath was said versus with what the oath actually entails. What the oath entails is it says, I do solemnly swear to the best of my ability to preserve, protect, and defend the Constitution of the United States. What the advocate implies is that the president is saying that they will preserve, protect, and defend the Bible, which is not what the oath actually says. So the oath represents the wishes of the public, while the Bible represents the integrity of the president. And the second claim that she makes was that it feels as if judges ask or acknowledge citizens need not be truthful to the government, but also but to God. And the evidence here is irrelevant. She used a quote from a CNN article that said, the Founding Fathers made it clear that the U.S. Constitution shall be the supreme law of the land, and as such, that's the document our president should place his hand on. However, so this evidence is about the president being sworn into office and not about witnesses testifying before a court, which is what the claim is being made about. And she makes a weak connection saying that our judges should share the same viewpoint. However, the scope between the two oaths are different. When the president promises to uphold the ideals of the Constitution, he's representing the country. And however, when witnesses promises not to lie, it's in court. So when you step out of court, you're free of not being charged of crime of perjury. Otherwise, we'd all be charged for lying the whole time. So the article cannot be applied to sworn testimony. And for the third claim, which says that seeing a president on national television swearing on a Bible insinuates that one must be religious to become president, the evidence for this claim is insufficient. She provides a personal anecdote and assumes the rest, same for the rest of the public. She uses words such as seems as if, or I imagine many others are also think the same. However, there is no concrete evidence to support the anecdote. In fact, she uses an example, or the anecdote that she uses, she says that her mother told her that the country will never elect an atheist president. However, Abraham Lincoln, Thomas Jefferson, and Howard Taft were speculated to being atheists during their presidential election campaigns, and that didn't stop them from becoming president. And also Thomas Jefferson again, and Andrew Johnson were known to have no religious affiliation, and they were president. Therefore, saying that the country will never elect an atheist president is incorrect. And so through this speech, I refuted a claim that as long as the Bible is being used in legal situations to take an oath, there is not a true separation of church and state. And I refuted his claim by making a counterclaim, saying that swearing into office represents an individual's integrity rather than the whole American public. And I showed that the evidence for the two other claims were irrelevant and insufficient. That concludes my presentation.
All right, structurally everything is pretty clear. On the first point, I think that you've got a good argument about the definition of what is going on here and interpreting the swearing on the Bible as being a reflection of the individual's integrity and not the government's integrity. I think that's a good twist on that. It's a reasonable interpretation, and it addresses some of the issues that the advocates seem to be concerned with. You also mentioned that there's no religious requirement to hold office, and so that seems to dismiss the notion that there has to be some kind of relationship that's going on there. I thought it was interesting that you mentioned that Adams and Pierce they used law books, and Theodore Roosevelt didn't use anything, and that JFK used the Catholic missile. You're listening to The West Wing? No? I was listening to a podcast about The West Wing. Have you ever heard of The West Wing, the TV show? There was a television show called The West Wing. It was about, the President of the United States. It was a very successful show. And this podcast, the show was on, it finished in 2007, but it's got a very loyal following. They have a podcast. And I had just listened to one of the episodes where the president is being inaugurated, and they're talking about giving him a Bible, and they go through this whole routine, and they said almost exactly the same thing that you said. And I'm just going, you guys must have used the same resource for your research on that, because it was almost word for word exactly the same. That's why I asked. It was just kind of an odd coincidence, because this was happening this week. All right. Never mind. Sorry. Your second point wasn't quite as clear, what you were saying. I do know that you are arguing that the evidence that the advocate presented wasn't relevant to this particular claim because it really wasn't court-centered, and I didn't understand the argument that you were making after that. The third point was pretty straightforward. You're just challenging the examples that they present. I think you're a little bit iffy suggesting that the presidents that you mentioned were atheists, that they were not particularly religious, I think you could identify with, or that they had a different interpretation of what religion might be. But the notion that, I think you ought to go back to that argument that says there's no religious test, and it's simply a decision of what the public decides, and if the public prefers somebody who is religious, or the public prefers somebody who's not religious, that's a democratic decision made by the population and the electorate. It's not something that's made by any officious organization, institution, or oligarchy that's trying to impose faith on us. All right, thank you.